All right, good evening. We're back, full staff. Landry back into place. Welcome to Cap and Trade. We are live on YouTube and Twitter Live and Twitter Spaces. So wherever you're at listening in or watching in, thank you for joining us. This is episode 38. Landry, how you doing, sir?
Throwback Kurt Schilling, 38. That's how you should have said it. So episode Kurt Schilling. I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Brandon Cook's not doing so good. Kamu Grugier-Hill, I guess he's doing good. He got what he wanted. But a very productive week for the Texans. Probably the most productive week of the season, I would say. If you're into the process. Davis Mills looked as good as he's looked. You got the loss. The Raiders won, so they jumped ahead of you in the standings. Carolina found a way to lose a football game. Washington, or to win a football game. Washington found a way to win a football game. And things are looking pretty good right now for the team tanks. And, oh, by the way, the Browns still suck, so they lost. So if the NFL draft were tomorrow, the Texans would have the number 2 and number 5 overall pick. The only team that's worse than them is Detroit. Detroit's got Chicago twice, and Detroit's got Carolina. So things are looking very, very good for the Houston Texans when it comes to the process.
Yes. And I want to start off right off the bat with a shout out to the Astros going to the World Series. Excited for that.
Way to just kill the flow with the shout out to the Astros. You pandering mofo, you.
Yes, sir. So, yeah, we'll start her off the bat. There's some unhappy players now. We got Kamu Grugier-Hill, who was released this evening and won't be official till tomorrow.
Who, by the way, was terrible this year.
Yes, he was not good. It was only a matter of time for his snaps went downhill. So, with Christian Harris coming back in and showing a little bit of some positive work, some good signs out there on the field. So, it was only a matter of time for Grugier's playing time to go away, and with Garrett Wallow seeing a little more time, and seems like Christian Kirk, he's going to remain the mic here for the at least for the next few weeks. We'll see what happens there, but
man,
need a little more Blake Cashman out there as well to get those young guys get some playing snaps. But I mean, I don't know if that it's any coincidence that right after Easterby is let go, that Grugier-Hill is displeased and unhappy. I think it's probably more so his playing time than anything. I don't know if you've heard anything different, but not a big loss by any stretch of the means. This defense will probably be better with him off the field. He was not good in coverage. He was getting swallowed up in the run game, and good. I'm sure he'll latch on somewhere else, find himself a spot on another team. Somebody will pick him up, I'm sure, for the vet minimum, and he'll get some spot playing time as he goes. But there was a few people asking around if thought maybe he might be a trade candidate. I didn't think he had. I didn't think he had any trade value, and this is obvious. Yeah, so this is confirmation of such that there was no trade value to be had with him, and let him go on about his way and figure out what's next for him. But the big one, I think, from a trade standpoint, is Brandon Cooks. It doesn't seem like there's anything on the horizon for him when it comes to a trade. He seems a little unhappy as well. You see his media appearance and skipping media appearances, and just does not look very happy out there. I don't know exactly what's the behind stories on that, but so far I think Green Bay's called, Kansas City's called, Los Angeles Rams have called. Rams is trying to dump Cam Akers on anybody in a trade. But it seems like Houston is not too serious about moving Cooks, but if the right draft compensation came up, aka a second-round pick, I think they would probably move him. But I just don't know how you get a second for him when you traded for him 2 years ago for a second-round pick, and he's got a decent contract, 2 more years left on it after this year with a fully guaranteed salary of $18 million next year. So that's a lot for any team to take on. So what's your thoughts on Brandon Cooks if the team were to make that move?
I mean, if he wants to go, let him go, because the sales pitch for Brandon Cooks, he's a good player. He's not great. He's not a number one guy. I think you would be in the market potentially to try to find a number one guy, whether he was here or not. I just don't think that if Brandon Cooks if he's not fully invested, then I don't know how he can have a role on this team. if from day one he had been a guy who'd come here and he'd been a guy that just brought his lunch pail to work and worked, played hard, did what Brandon Cooks does, which is produce at a pretty good level, then that would be one thing. But you can't go from being a culture guy to just showing up and doing your job when you're the type of player that Brandon Cooks is. So if he wants to go, and I don't want to set a precedent where anyone who wants to go can go, but when we're talking about guys like Kamu Grugier-Hill and Brandon Cooks, you got to let him go. This isn't a stand your ground Deshaun Watson type of thing where you're trying to get max value. There might not be a ton of value. The receiver draft this next season is absolutely stacked. I mean, the names are ridiculous. So there's a chance there. But if he wants to go, let him go. And quite frankly, if your entire happiness with this organization and with the process and all that, if it's tied to Jack Easterby, get the hell out of town, man. Like, get the hell out of town. If that is entirely if the worst thing to ever happen to football in this city is what is keeping you happy and keeping you sane and keeping you bought in and keeping you from not pouting and keeping you from doing what you've been doing for 2 years, which is showing up and speaking on Wednesday as a representative of this organization and one of the faces of the process. If Jack Easterby leaving is what causes you to be unhappy, get the hell out of here. Best of luck to you. I've enjoyed talking to Brandon Cooks. I think Brandon Cooks is a good player, but if that is enough for you to mope, you got to go. Peace out.
So you're fine with, even if it was like a 4th round or anything
Fine.
like that, if he's ready to go, then just go.
Fine with it. 100%.
Fair enough.
I don't know how much worse does this team get without Brandon Cooks?
They don't. I mean, they're, instead of maybe being in most games, they might be not so much in as many games, but they're not getting any better. They're not going to the amount of wins that Cooks would be contributing to is probably 0 if you stayed on this roster. So if that means getting a peek at some of the younger guys on the practice squad, at this point with Nico Collins being day to day, we'll see whenever he comes back, but he would become your number one.
That.
Yeah. It sounds like he's day to day right now. They're not putting him on injured reserve to miss 4 games. So that's a little bit promising. I hear he's, not walking around with a limp or anything like that. I think the team probably just take the cautious approach and he'll probably miss a game, maybe 2 games, and then they'll reevaluate and see where he's at. But it doesn't sound like it's a big deal for him. So, I mean, the wide receiver core is pretty, as we know, it's pretty just not a whole lot of depth there. And, the fans have been clamoring for the old 5th round draft pick waiver claim, Tyler Johnson, who subsequently was released. He could not get the playbook. He had no confidence of the coaching staff. He had issues in Tampa Bay. Apparently he missed meetings and things like that. So it just, no inspiration at all amongst the coaching staff, amongst the organization with Tyler Johnson. And that's primarily why he was inactive. Well, I think he had like 29 snaps this year in 2 games that he was active and just couldn't see the field. And, is what it is. And you see, nobody claimed him today. He made it through waivers. So he'll just end up being somewhere else and move on about our way. And the team, re-signed Tyron Johnson, who was on this team 3 years ago. Has a little overlap with Pep Hamilton out of Los Angeles. When he was out there, he's got some speed, some straight line speed. So maybe we'll see a little bit of change in the playbook. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, but, Chris Moore wasn't that fast and Philip Dorsett is what he is. So maybe Tyron Johnson can add a little speed component and give Davis Mills a downfield target, but who knows? At least we saw a little bit of positivity out of Davis Mills this past week, but this wide receiver core without Nico Collins, and then if you move Brandon Cooks, just gets very scary. I mean, you've got like Davion Davis, Jalen Camp, folks like that are on the practice squad. So really don't know what the team would do. I mean, it's not going to get any worse than it is right now. So maybe just find some young players to try to see if there's anything worth there from having, but it's going to be tough sledding for that position. And we'll see what happens with Brandon Cooks. I'm not entirely sure. Draft, Caserio, I don't know that you just move him just to move him if he's unhappy. Maybe you reassess in the coming off season and see if there's any kind of trades for that, or leading up to the draft. Maybe there's a trade package there versus what you can get right now. I just don't get the impression that Nick is willing to move him just to move him, but the team's done things like that before. So we'll see. They did that with Mark Ingram last year, just moved him just to, they even asked him if he wanted to go to New Orleans when that phone call came through. So we'll see what happens there, but getting the younger guys on the field. Christian Harris showed signs, very good, a lot of speed, had a few mistakes,
bad moments.
Yeah, it's a rookie. It's his first game back. I was expecting to have like 10, 15 snaps, some special teams work. Heck no, they put him in the fire hose and stuck him out there. He had a ton of play time. I think it was almost 40% playing time out there. Him and Kamu were kind of rotating out at that will linebacker spot. Kirksey didn't come off the field again. But, overall, what do you think out of Christian Harris?
I thought he looked good. I think he's going to be good. I think there's going to be a lot of mistakes, but I think there's going to be a lot of flashes. You don't start every game for Nick Saban at linebacker and suck. Like, it just doesn't happen. And the freakish athleticism is, it goes without saying. Didn't even play linebacker in high school, and he starts every game for Nick Saban. I thought he looked good. A lot of times he looked kind of lost, but nothing that you wouldn't expect from a rookie and a third-round pick and a guy that's going to have to figure stuff out. But thought he was fine. And I was glad that they put him out there as much as they did. I was glad they didn't kind of like tiptoe, because, in the past, there have been similar situations where, maybe not, because even with O'Brien, like, they were in situations to where they were, every game really, really mattered, but you kind of babysit the rookies and you kind of try to, string them along. I was glad that they put him out there as much as they did. I thought he looked good. I thought that this game was really just about how crappy his front seven is.
Oh man.
That's really it. Like, I don't even know how to judge the secondary at this point, because I don't know how good Lovey is at scheming them to their best abilities. Although I think they're doing a good job. Nelson and Stingley are playing good, but I think they could be doing even better. I don't know about Lovie Smith calling a defense at the moment, although it's kind of hard to judge because this is the worst front seven in franchise history. Like, I don't even think it's close. Like, this is easily the worst front seven that this organization has ever had. And it just makes me wonder, are they going to go D-line instead of quarterback in the draft, or is that going to be something that they have to think about? Because Davis Mills is a lot closer. And hear me right here. I'm not saying that Davis Mills is going to get here. Davis Mills is a lot closer to playing at the same level as the worst representation of a starting quarterback on a contender than this front seven is of you having any chance in hell of doing anything. It is bad. It is. I don't know that any of these guys 2 years from now are going to be, and I'll put Harris aside for this. I don't know that any of these guys are going to be a part of anything 2 years from now. And that's not even factoring in age. I'm just talking about the quality of players that you have right now on this front seven. Like, if you want to get good and you have, money in free agency and you have draft picks, I don't know how many of these guys are even guys that you would want starting on your football team. It's bad.
No, Malik Collins was not even, he's not even one of the better defensive tackles out there, but he's a solid player. But without him in that front line, it just got bad with Booker, Heinisch, and Lopez. And it's, we saw they signed Jaleel Johnson today, which is just going to be another rotation guy. He was here last year. But they were just getting swallowed up. They were getting manhandled by the Raiders. You see the folks that post the clips on Twitter and social media. Josh Jacobs just had huge running lanes.
Bo Jackson?
Yeah. So, he just, and by the time you got to the fourth quarter, they were just gassed. They were
gassed. And that's the thing. Like, it's not like, you can't say, like you can watch and you can say, well, what is Lovey doing here? What should he be doing? But it's not realistic to like expect much more. Like I don't I don't
It's a talent issue at this point.
it's a talent issue. Like there's nothing like in I hope people aren't like souring on like the Heinishes and Roy Lopez's because those guys can be rotational guys. Like Roy Lopez can be a rotational guy, but on this team in this situation, and it might end up being really good experience, for 2 years from now when he's on the final year of his rookie deal, and hopefully you have someone better than him and he's a rotational guy. Like this can only make him better, but Roy Lopez should not be starting on an NFL team at this point.
Right.
It's impressive that he is. Like even the fact that he is even on a bad team is that, but like that shouldn't happen on a good squad. I mean, I think we can agree on that.
Yes.
And Jerry Hughes has just run out of gas. Like Jerry Hughes is, I mean, he ran
lasted
out of gas
that lasted
after
about 2 weeks.
week 1.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember we're like, man, we found the fountain of youth week 1. He was all over the place.
who?
Gone downhill so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what happens. So he's just kind of done.
Yeah, 34 and a half. Yeah.
Kirksey annoys me, man.
How so?
Man, first of all, what the hell was he doing on that Renfro catch? He just walked right by him. Did he think he was playing college football? And then Renfro gets up and gets an extra 10 or 15 yards. He looks so lost in coverage at times, and he looks so lost at the line of scrimmage. But every time he's Kevin Johnson linebacker version. Every time he makes a tackle, 8-9 yards downfield, 3-yard gain or something, he has to flex. He has to pump his chest. He has to run back to the huddle. I know. Look, he is what he is, okay? And I think he's like an authentic culture guy. I don't think him being a culture guy is tied to Easterby or anything like that. So I respect Christian Kirksey for giving them everything they've got. But good God, man, do we have to celebrate every tackle downfield like Kevin Johnson? Driving me nuts. And what are you doing on that Renfro play? You just walk by him.
He's walking by him. He's picking horrible lanes. There was like 3 or 4 clips. I think DJ had posted them up on social media, and you see on a run play, and Kirksey, I don't know what he either just goes right into the back of one of the defensive linemen.
I don't think he reads it.
He can't pick the right lane. Then he gets buckled up at the last second. He can't make up his mind. Next thing you know, he's stuck behind the defensive line, and Josh Jacobs is running right past. So
it seems like he just decides I'm going through this gap, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Yeah. It's
rough. It's a rough look. Yeah. But I'm glad they lost. That was a big loss, man.
I mean, between Carolina, Carolina wins and
Washington wins.
Did Pittsburgh? No,
Pittsburgh loses, but Pittsburgh had won earlier. Like Tom Brady is like the best thing to happen to the Texans because he's letting all these crappy football teams win. Like Pittsburgh didn't look like they would ever win a game. They win, and then Carolina wins.
Yeah.
Like
so right now, it
was a good week for the Texans.
Yeah.
A really good week.
Yeah. They're, I think, slotted number 2 and number 4 in the draft right now between their pick and Cleveland's pick. We need Cleveland to keep doing what they're doing. If you can do top 5 picks. And, oh, man, I know. So, Dare Ogunbowale.
Oh my God, are we doing this?
Yeah, that's your RB2 now. It has to be.
Is he?
Hey, you saw what you do in garbage time. No, it's just funny when you see like Lovey get up there and he's like, yeah, it kind of surprised us. We were,
surprised you. What were you watching? We saw it in preseason.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I was trying to get to. I mean, you saw him live.
We've been bitching about this for weeks.
Yep. Also, we've been asking for is 5 to 7 snaps out of him. I understand Rex Burkhead is going to find the field and he's going to be out there, and nothing we can do about that as fans. But you need to. I'm just worried that Pierce is going to gas out at this point.
Dude,
he's got to be exhausted already.
I don't think he's an RB1.
I don't think.
I know that sounds crazy. I think he's a 1B. I think he's a 1B, 1A type of guy. Like I think
He's not a bell cow.
He's
somebody you need somebody in tandem with him.
He's either Jonathan Stewart or D'Angelo Williams. Like you have to have two backs that you're like giving like an equal carry share to. But he's never been that. That's not an insult. Like there's a lot of really, really good backs that, they're not bell cows. And it's weird because you kind of feel, I don't want to say you feel hypocritical, but on one hand, you're saying, give him the ball, give him the ball, give him the ball. Where's 31? Why the hell are you giving the ball to 28? And then all of a sudden it's like, damn, might be giving him the ball a little bit too damn much.
Yeah, that turned really quickly, and I was kind of curious to see how the reaction would be from the fan base. Is like you said, is giving the ball. And now it's like, okay, back off a little bit. Let's knock
Just
it down to about just take about 5 carries, 5 snaps off the field away from him. Give him a little breather. Dare can do a little bit more, and I don't know why or what the reason was for not having him on the field. But there's got to be a way for them to find some place for him to get out there. 5 to 7 snaps. That's all we're looking for. And, just see what you got. I mean, he's under contract for next year. So maybe he can show you something and be that kind of tandem guy with Pierce. But I think he maybe becomes your RB3 next year if you keep him under contract and draft another running back next year and have a really, really strong run game heading into there. So, that's kind of hopefully the path that the team might be able to take. And, just want to thank everybody for joining in so far. We got a lot of folks over on Twitter Spaces, got Twitter Live, YouTube Live. So if you got any questions, comments, post them up on YouTube. We'll see them show up here. If you got a question on through Twitter Spaces, you can post a comment there. In the bottom right hand of your corner is a little chat icon. Tweet icon. You can tweet to the space. I see we got one request in. I haven't tested taking a person speaking in from Twitter Spaces, but just hang tight, Leon, and we'll try it out and see what happens. See if it works like I think it will. So with that, I mean, you see how the team is progressing. We saw, like you said, the right teams that are winning games, and Houston is losing games. So it's progressing well. It's curious to see how the rest of the division shakes out.
This week though is weird. They feel like it seems like Vegas thinks Texans are winning this game, man.
Why is that?
They're begging you to take Tennessee.
On the money line or the spread?
-2 is the spread right now. They are begging you to take Tennessee. A lot of people are doing it, charging it to the game. But this is like, of all the spreads that feel fishy, that it seems like they want you to take Tennessee. I don't see it happening. And it would be a hell of a costly loss, because I think you're facing 2 right now. You got the Eagles next Thursday.
Yep.
But it does feel like Las Vegas feels. The Titans are 1-7 against the spread, their last 8 against the Texans. So the Texans, for whatever reason, they've just kind of been able to cover against Tennessee with the spread, but it's fishy, man. It's a very, very fishy line.
Tennessee's a weird team this year.
They always overachieve with Vrabel. That's what I say. Like they've never not overachieved with Vrabel.
Yeah, because I was looking at some numbers, and they're one of the best teams on third down this year. On defense, they're actually way out ahead of everybody, and I don't know if that's sustainable or not through the course of a whole season, but they are just dramatically better than anybody else in the league on third down. And we see up until this last week against Las Vegas, where Houston did very well on third down. Up into this game against Las Vegas, Houston has notoriously been very bad on third down. So I think this is going to be another situation, if that continues to hold course, where the team Texans can't, move forward on third down, and Tennessee shutting them down. It's going to be another weekend of the running back gassing out the defense. Derrick Henry just running all over them. By the time we get to the fourth quarter, they're just wore down, and can't hold up anymore. So I'm kind of curious, but I mean, they're just like I don't know if scrappy is the right word or not, but they just
I think
seem to
it's 100% the right word.
they just seem to find a way to find a win, like you said with Vrabel. It's he's been a very good head coach. We saw what it kind of makes me wonder if what happened with him getting away, if the Texans were able to keep him around. I know his 1 year as a coordinator was not what many folks wanted to see, but it'd have been kind of interesting to see if he could have stuck around in the organization with the and maybe have taken over for O'Brien at one point or things like that. That would have been something interesting to see and see how that played out. But of course, that didn't happen. That's a little bit of hindsight. He got away, and he's doing well in Tennessee. But I just don't know what. I mean, Tennessee has no wide receivers. Treylon Burks, their first round pick, is out. They're having to depend on their tight ends. They're having to lean on Derrick Henry again, and Robert Woods, I think, is probably their wide receiver number one at this point, and he's coming off the major injury and is a little bit older in age. So it's like you said, Vegas is wanting folks to put money on Houston. I don't know that that's a very good bet, but we'll see. The team's coming here. It's a 3:00 start, unfortunately. But
You're not
we'll
a fan
see.
of the 3:00, huh?
No, I am not. But it's a
It's
little
too late
easier
for you,
time-wise
huh?
for shut up.
Past your bedtime. You want to hear something like real crazy about Tennessee, and this is just weird.
Okay.
So the Texans in the fourth quarter, they're averaging 2.8 points per game in the fourth. And we know they had the drought to start the season. Tennessee is dead last in fourth quarter scoring. They score a point a game in the fourth quarter. A point a game in the fourth quarter, the Tennessee Titans. And they're in first place. And that's the whole thing. Like, with Mike Vrabel, you go to an AFC championship game, you win a division. Everyone's saying, well, they got Derrick Henry, so it's just Derrick Henry. And the only reason they win games is because of Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry gets hurt last year into the 1 seed in the AFC. And it's a fool's gold 1 seed. Like, nobody, I don't know anybody who picked Tennessee to make a run last year. And of course they got bounced, but just the fact they were the 1 seed is impressive. And they're a weird team, man. They're a weird team. But they seem to have, like, with the wild week that was in the AFC South with Indianapolis changing quarterbacks and Jacksonville finally trading James Robinson and Brandon Cooks looking like he wants to be traded and Kamu Grugier-Hill requesting his release. The Tennessee Titans are just kind of chilling. And they're chilling like where they've been for the majority of the Mike Vrabel era. They're right at the top of the AFC South. It's impressive.
It's interesting that you said it on the fourth down because they're bad, but my gosh, Houston is worse at fourth down. So let's see here. Man, I was trying to show my screen and it's not wanting to let me do it. Oh, well.
You're in technology, man. You're the best, worst technology guy I've ever met.
Hey, better than a few other people, but yeah, I can find my way around. But yeah, Sam Ehlinger.
Yeah,
your guy.
He's not my guy. I respect his heart. I respect the work ethic. I will say, if he's not going to get down, then he's going to get injured very quickly. There was a time at Texas where he basically had to wear the damn the neck thing because he was taking such a beat down. Now, a lot of that had to do with Tom Herman, but when your quarterback's wearing the old Brian Cox neck piece, probably taking too many hits, so he's going to have to learn to get down. But I think he might actually force them to kind of play a style that fits what they do best. Although the offensive line is not what it once was.
It's
So
not. Yeah.
the ground and pound stuff that we become used to, the hats that they wore a couple of years ago, run the damn ball, might be a little bit more difficult. But when you have a quarterback that's kind of a threat, maybe that loosens the defense up a little bit to where, the ends are kind of hugging on the outside and you're able to run the rock. But I think they'll probably simplify things. They'll probably find more creative ways to use Hines and Mo Alley Cox and some of the intermediate options they have. But I think there's a better chance than not that Indianapolis is going to be in the market for a quarterback. Although I do think they can win 7-8 games, which would be perfect for the Texans because they'd be kind of in no man's land. But it's weird that the Colts admitted that they were wrong this early. Frank Reich's on the hot seat for sure.
I think Frank Reich and Chris Ballard are on the hot seat. I think this was a Jim Irsay intervention, if I had to guess. And
you try to sell them on, three quarterbacks, 3 straight years. And, the
rent a quarterback option is coming back to haunt them. And, I was kind of curious how that would, how that contributes compared to what Houston may or may not do next year. You see how Ballard avoided using a high draft pick on a quarterback year after year after year and tried to find other solutions. And I know there's been a lot of talk, a lot of discussion of how Houston should handle the draft next year, whether it's a quarterback early or start building pieces around the rest of the roster and leave the quarterback position alone, or at least not use your first 2 picks on a quarterback. And I just don't know, is what we're seeing in Indy, is that an indication of what could happen here if the team went down that path? Does that make sense?
Yeah. In Indy, it's different because here I don't think it would be as frustrating because I don't think they're a quarterback away. I think Indianapolis, since 2018 when Luck retired, I think a case could be made that they were a quarterback away. Like they were a team that, if this team has good quarterback play, they could even potentially maybe win a Super Bowl. And even before last year's meltdown, when they ended up losing to the Raiders and the Jags to end the season, and I think their percentage of getting in the playoffs was like 92% at one point when they were facing the Raiders. They were a quarterback away and they were even playing really well. So I think it's a little bit different there than it is here, to where I don't think like there would be like that level of frustration. But that's the difference between them, is they kind of built the squad and then they just decided. I don't know if they got cute. I don't know if cute is the right thing. Maybe there just wasn't an opportunity. Like maybe they just kind of just like it was just a bad luck situation where they couldn't get it. But they traded out of the
Darnold. They traded out of the Darnold spot and never really took another swing at a quarterback. So
and they looked smart. They looked kind of smart.
At the time they did, because they did. They got Shaq Leonard. They got a lot of good players out of that. A lot of assets. It is, when you have a team trading up for a quarterback, it obviously increases the draft compensation versus somebody trading up for a tackle or a defensive line or something like that. So it's just an interesting thought exercise. It's a valid point that Houston's not in the same spot, if you wanted to put it like on a timeline, that Indianapolis was when Andrew Luck retired, and then they had to make the quick change. And so maybe Houston is just not quite as far along with building that roster. And if the team decides to go that route and maybe find another bridge option or continue running with Mills or whatever it may be in 2023, there's going to be some veteran options out there if you wanted to try a bridge option to get you through 1 year. So it'd be interesting to see how they manage that. I just, I think the question would be, at least for Lovey, maybe not so for Nick, but you're asking this coaching staff, you're expecting the owner to give this staff in this front office group more time, knowing that, if you go that route, I'm still going to let you be around for 2024 to make that pick for your quarterback. And I just don't know that Lovie Smith would be kept around that long if he had another bad season, based on not drafting a quarterback. So it's just interesting. We'll see how it goes. There's a lot there. You could dive down that rabbit hole, spend a lot of time there. We'll have plenty of time in the offseason to make that kind of discussion. We do have a few requests on Spaces, so we'll see if those work. I did get one question on Spaces asking about the Brandon Cooks potential trade and how the cap breaks down from there. So I shared a tweet within the Spaces that breaks it all down for you. But essentially, if they were to trade Cooks by Sunday, it's like a $967,000 cap savings. It's a very minor cap savings. The team would have an $8.7 million dead money cap charge this year and 16.2 next year, which would be a $10 million savings next year, because I think his cap charge next year is upwards around 25 or so. But the big thing is the team has already contributed over, they signed him to an extension this past offseason with a $16 million signing bonus. So the team's already going to be fronting up almost $17 million this year after signing him to the extension, only to trade him away. So, like I said, there's a little, to answer the question, there's a little bit of savings. It doesn't all accelerate into the cap this year because we're past June 1. If you were to do the trade prior to June 1 in the league year, then all of that bonus money would all accelerate into this year. So now that we're past June 1, the money splits up a little bit differently. So we'll see what happens if teams will to take that contract on. But we're going to hear Spaces and get requests still. All right. Let's see if I can remember. It's been a while since I did this here. Request. Leonidas, go ahead and take yourself off mute.
Hello.
Hey,
how you doing, Cap?
Oh, not too bad, sir.
I just have a few questions. First off, Brandon Cooks, what would be a fair price as far as a draft round for him if we were going to trade for a team that's like desperate for a receiver? And my second thing is with Lovie Smith, what you were talking about. I'm curious to know, because we have all this draft capital that's going on for next year, do you think that if they kept Lovie Smith or not keep Lovie Smith, we got a new coach just because of all this draft cap, and we have a new quarterback possibility, like it could be endless. Do you think that Lovie Smith should get this kind of draft capital for next season, regardless of what our record's going to be with him?
It's a good question, or a good set of questions. So for the first one, I think the team is holding out for a 2. Would it be fair, like Landry was talking about at the beginning of the show, just to go ahead and move him off if he wants to be moved? And if it's a team like the Chiefs, they have pick 90 and 100 in the 3rd round. So maybe instead of a 2, you can get one of those 3s and maybe a future day 3 pick, whether it's next year or 2024.
Give me Sky Moore.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way, buddy.
I mean, if they get Brandon Cooks, they're going to use him in less. Give me Sky Moore and 100.
No, I don't think KC's going to do that. Well, I mean, he's a rookie. They got to give him time. I'm sure they have, because there are other
Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, well, there are other wide receivers are not under contract beyond Hardman. I mean, I think Valdez-Scantling and I'm drawing a blank on who the other one is. Yeah, Juju. They're both on 1-year deals. So, but I think what's fair, I mean, that's the tricky part. I think teams are probably calling right now, trying to offer up like a 4th or something like that, and trying to use the contract as justification for only offering a 4th. And I think Houston is holding out for a 2. They're not just trying to move him just to move him at this point, but maybe things change. We'll see what if they end up losing again on Sunday. I think that might change things up a little bit, and maybe they're willing to take a 3. Would I be disappointed in them getting just a 3? Not really. Just it is what it is, and you just have to have faith in the front office, and that just gives them that much more ammo. I mean, they've already got 12 picks next year, and 2 of them are being third round picks. So if they got another third rounder, then that's just more ammunition for Casario maybe to move up into the second round or something like that.
Which
Landry,
is
I
a
don't know if you
money
have any.
round.
Yeah, I mean that's where teams really
That's the
really
bread.
make their
That's where they
hay
do work.
is getting those picks in 35 to the 75 range. That's where you can really, really do some damage, find a lot of value, especially with the decay of the contracts from the top 10 picks down to that second and third and fourth round. Those contracts are very, very low cost by all means compared. So as for the second question, I don't know. I mean, I think that's what we were just kind of touching on. I think at this point, I think the team is probably going to keep Lovey around for another season. I think there's just some, I don't know if optics might be a little bit involved. We know with Easterby being gone, that the McCown thing is probably no longer an option. So at this point, unless they just really unless Lovey wanted to retire or something like that, which it doesn't seem to be the case. And I don't foresee him willing to like take a step back just to the defensive coordinator role. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if they promoted somebody up, maybe his son or something like that, up to the coordinator role, and let Lovey just be a head coach. But I think he sticks around. I think Casario is still going to be the main person managing those draft choices with input from the staff and from Lovey, but it's going to be a Casario show at draft day. So at this point, I don't see any reason why Lovey's going to not be here next year.
And I
So
don't think
with
he has
the-
anything really like it's Casario's making those picks. He's not making them, just thinking just about Lovey. So yeah, I don't think that impacts anything. The picks, like Lovey's not making them. That's gonna be Nick. So
Right, I
think
understand
that
that, but the thing is, though, Lovey's still running that Tampa 2 defense, though.
Mhm.
So
yeah, and
I
I don't know. I don't know how much. I don't think, like, let me put it this way: if Casario is drafting a player, I don't think he's going to draft for scheme fit.
Yeah,
Because
that's
you can make a
exactly what I
case
was
that
gonna say.
Derek Stingley doesn't necessarily fit Lovey Smith's scheme. So I think he's kind of shown you that he's not gonna draft guys with Tampa 2 in mind. Stingley's best strength is man. Something he's probably playing too much zone this year. So I don't think Nick is going to sit there and say, well, I really like this guy, but he doesn't fit into the way Lovey calls defense. They might just have to adjust to the player. So I think this Stingley pick kind of shows you just kind of how Casario is not really concerned about, Tampa 2 and all that type of stuff.
So you guys don't think that he's going to find his guy next season? You think he's just going to stick with Lovey for one more season? Because the Romeo Cornell situation, where he ended up being a senior defensive analyst, I think it was called, or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. Like, maybe Lovey could actually step to that role and give it to a new head coach. Anything could happen. I understand that, but I'm just curious to know, because we have all this draft cap. So would it make more sense just to like get a new head coach that like actually want to be here and has all this ammo right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Lovey. I don't. If Lovey's not going to be the head coach and like the face, I don't need him hanging around. I don't think his defensive philosophy is such that you just got to keep it around. So if he's done, he's done. But I would love for Casario to find his guy. I just don't think they're at the point right now where they feel like, I don't know if they think winning is counterproductive, but they just needed credibility and they needed someone to step in there. When push comes to shove, Casario is going to try to find his guy. I don't think he's going to feel that pressure after this year. I think Lovey's going to probably get another year if he wants it. I don't know if he wants it. I haven't seen enough to like want to get rid of him, but I didn't like that Romeo crap, honestly. I mean, that was weird. Like I don't know
feel
why
like
he
a
was still here.
glorified thing. I don't even think I don't know how much
He was
really
coaching brooms in a broom closet, basically.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think he was really contributing that much. I think it seemed like
Yeah.
more of a patriotic kind of,
Yeah.
glorified role. Just here, we'll keep you, almost like a consultant type thing when somebody retires from their
And
job.
I thought they should have given Weaver the interim job. Honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that would have been a better opportunity than giving it to Romeo. And I think Weaver is probably pretty pissed off about that too.
Leonidas, you got anything else, bud?
No, appreciate you, man.
All right, thank you.
All right, brother.
All right.
He is. I mean, it is a good thought, you know, because you do wonder, like, especially when you're talking about defense, like, is Caserio going to prefer a 3-4? Are they going to prefer something else? Does Caserio already have an idea who he wants to hire 2 years from now? So he's going to draft with that in mind. I mean, it is a good point. You know, it's not like Lovey's like a 35-year-old coach where you're drafting with him in mind. That has to at least cross, Scout Goodhair and Nick Caserio's mind when they're making these decisions about who to bring in and whatnot. I actually think it's more of a thing because defenses can transition and really offenses can too. Like we've seen some guys come in and do a pretty good job first year, like Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota and Brian Dable with the Giants. So, but you see defenses kind of transition relatively quickly. I wonder if it matters more like with the quarterback. Like, do you think Pep Hamilton's going to be along for the ride for a long time? So if you draft Bryce Young, that would be to me the bigger like concern scheme wise than drafting guys and having them play a certain defense 1 year and then play, another defense another. That's really where it gets weird. Now, that's what Ross Tucker was talking about when he was on our station talking about, one and done with the QB. I think that would be more of a factor.
All right. Vera, what's going on, man?
Hey, TC. Hey, Landry. Couple of questions. So one is, I know obviously we've been talking of, so some of us are kind of already checked out a little bit with the way things are going. And unless Mills turns it around in the next 10 games, it's reasonable to expect that we will be drafting a quarterback, at least if not day one, definitely by day two. With that in mind, do you think it is better to sort of wait out, continue with just building a team, and then maybe for Games kind 24, or even they will almost certainly expect that, hey, Nick, you need to just go find a quarterback, whether it's Bryce Young, CJ, or Will Levis, or whoever. So that's one question. And certainly with the awful play of the front seven, I know Jerry Hughes and Rasheem Green have kind of been good in patches, but they are good rotational guys, or maybe not not a defensive end one. Do you think the poor play of the front seven on the defense has sort of shifted a focus back to drafting that in our 2023 draft, when I was thinking it might be a lot more to do with the offense, the quarterback, the wide receiver, a tight end kind of thing? I'll just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of many different directions this team could go going forward, and it's a little early to be able to know exactly. I mean, we can speculate, and it seems like there's two paths. It's either take the quarterback and try to build around that, or like a defensive line, continue bolstering up the trenches, find some more, find another skill player, and you either and find that bridge option at the quarterback position to get you to 2024. We kind of talked about it before, and just kind of see where this team is in their timeline of the rebuild. And I've always been pro just take the quarterback. If I'll say it with a caveat that assumes that you feel that that's your guy and you can win with him and you can build something with him. If the team doesn't feel confident in Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, whoever it is, then by all means, don't draft them and build and go the other route and then find another bridge option. I certainly don't want this team to take a quarterback just to take a quarterback. I don't believe in the philosophy of just taking your shots over and over and over at the quarterback position. I think you should be picky and choosy with them, especially in the first two rounds. even if it means drafting another guy in the 3rd round to compete with Davis Mills next year or something like that. That's another option. And, just take those first 4 picks in the first 2 rounds, or, whatever it may be, whatever he may end up, he may, trade down one of those first round picks and just have multiple picks in the first round. I think I think it's positive nature whichever way you go. It's just how this team and what kind of future Caserio sees with this team, and what kind of guide that Cal McNair has provided for him and allowed for him. Is it not a 2-year project and then it becomes a 3-year project? And is Cal McNair willing to wait that long, or does he want that splash move and get the quarterback in here? So there's a lot of ways to go about it, and I don't think there's any wrong way to go about it. I think either path is a good path. It's just got to be the right players.
Yeah, I don't think there's a right answer. I don't think there's a right formula. I think it's just going to depend on, what the situation is. I could see a case where you keep going with Davis Mills. You have the 2 1s and you just build the best team possible to where you're ready to go. I always like to point to the Jets because they were in a similar situation. They weren't winning games because of Zach Wilson, because they drafted a quarterback at 2. They're winning games because the D lineman that they took in the top 5 is coming into his own. They drafted running backs a couple of times, and they built, the rest of things. Now, Zach Wilson might end up making them look good, but they built a pretty decent football team around him to where they weren't quarterback dependent. So I could see it going either way, man. I could see it going either way. And quite honestly, if they decide that they don't want to take a quarterback at 1 or 2, sign me up for a trade, man. Like, I like Will Anderson and stuff, but if they're sitting there at 2 and they decide that, we might want to go this direction, as much as I like Will Anderson, I like the thought of getting a couple 1st-round picks and more from a team that's desperate to trade up for one of those quarterbacks, and someone's going to be in love with them. So if they decide, okay, we still got a lot of holes. We need a receiver. We need linebackers. We need defensive line. We need all these things. If they decide they don't love one of these quarterbacks, sign me up for the mother effing trade.
Yeah,
because it is going to be a gold mine at 2, given the fact that someone's going to love Will Levis, someone's going to love CJ Stroud, someone's going to love Bryce Young. If they love those guys, go ahead and take them. But if they don't, trade like a mofo.
You got teams like the Saints. Well, they're short on draft capital. We got the Saints.
The Eagles got that pick. The Eagles have the 4th pick in the draft right now. How about that?
Yeah.
They're undefeated and got the 4th damn pick in the draft.
Yeah. If the Raiders move from Derek Carr, you got Atlanta Falcons going to be looking for a quarterback. They're at number 10, number 11, Tampa Bay, if Tom Brady moves on. Pick 15 is Washington. I mean, there's a lot, all the way down to the Colts.
Green Bay, if Aaron Rodgers moves on.
What's 15 to 3? That's 2 1s at least. At least.
Especially
that
for
might
a
be
quarterback.
3 1s.
Especially for a quarterback.
Especially at 2.
Yeah.
So, Vera, I could see it, but I also think, like, as much as I like Will Anderson, the fact that you have the Browns draft pick 2, if you don't love these quarterbacks, trade your ass off. And then we're talking about who know? I mean, good.
Yeah, I mean,
God,
you could easily come out of you could easily come out with this draft with 2 or 3 picks in the first round this year, and then 3, your 2 picks in 2024 plus another one or extra 2s. I mean, you could turn around and end up having 5 pick, 3 or 4 or 5 picks in the first 2 rounds that could be potential impact players quickly. And then, that's going to be interesting 5 years down the road. But man, if you could have that many picks potentially contributing to a roster, that can turn things around quickly, regardless of who's at quarterback. So, Vera, I mean, there's multiple ways this can go. It's going to be, you just have to kind of wait and see how the rest of the rest of the season goes, hopefully the team will start playing some of the younger players and you just see what you have in them. And then that kind of can help guide you and direct you where things need to go and see how free agency plays out. And so a lot of questions to be had between now and then. You got anything else, Vera?
No, that'll be it, man. I think so. You're just saying I should keep my bottle of whiskey next to me and prepare for long 2022 and 2023 seasons. Got it.
No,
Not
it's
a
gonna be
long
fun, man.
2023, but it's going to
fun.
be
You're going to see all these ballers right now that are balling out. They're going to continue to get better, and there's
Mock-
going to be even more, man.
It's already mock draft season. What are you
Enjoy
talking
it.
about? I've
This is
seen it.
fun, man. I
Sounds
know
good.
how you
Thanks,
are during the
guys.
draft.
I've seen mock drafts already. Somebody sent me one. I was like, no. It is too early for that nonsense.
You clicked it though. The other thing is, like, I wonder how much chess Nick Caserio played, and I don't know how much front office guys do this. Like, when you're in a situation like the Texans and you have 2 first-round picks for 3 straight years, like, do you look ahead to the next draft and say, okay, 2023 doesn't have as good of options at cornerback. So in 2022, I'm going to take Stingley and I'm going to get my safety Petrie, because 2023 has a hell of a lot of receivers and it has a hell of a lot of defensive line options. So instead of going that direction, I go here. I wonder how much that comes into play when you have all that draft equity. It
I
has
think
to come in a little bit, right?
I think it plays a big role. I think it's a combo of what's going to be potentially available in free agency. And we know free agency is a crapshoot, but you can kind of see how the free agency signings go and correlate that with the draft. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about, is you see what the future looks like. We know, you already have a lot of scouting information for players that are going to be in the 2024 draft, most likely, at least some input already. So, what you did now, what's going to be heavy in 2023. Things can change and everybody knows that, but you have a good idea of what's out there come draft of next year when you're making your picks in 2022. You may not have exact names, but you have position groups that will be stronger in this draft or next draft. And then you can kind of adjust for that. And then you use free agency to fill in those holes as short-term solutions to fill in around those draft picks. So I think what you're saying makes perfect sense. And I do think it is a factor in how the team works their draft and works their roster building. It's not just this year. It's about what's coming down the pipeline next year, for sure. Definitely. And we know Caserio has a shorter term outlook compared to previous regimes at this, like I've talked about with Rick Smith, he always had like that 3-year outlook, and Caserio is very much a 1 to 2 year outlook kind of guy. So I'm sure he does the same thing on the draft and just has to adjust. You can't depend on it, but you adjust and work around it, and you just try to find the best players you can right now, knowing what's out there next year.
Yeah, it's fun, man. I like it, man. I like it. I'm enjoying this ride. I really am, because I can see positive light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I think a lot of us were saying that last year too, heading into
Now,
the
last
draft.
year sucked. Last year sucked because
No, I mean, like, or maybe the off season. It's like, all right, finally got a first round, got a second round, got out from underneath the Watson situation. So I think there was a lot of excitement heading into this season, and it's kind of tampered down quite a bit. You see that whenever I do my little fun fan confidence meter on Davis Mills, and the number still hasn't come up from 20 or 30% confidence. And I think maybe it was Crumpler who was messaging me about it, that a lot of fans have already kind of given in on this season, knowing that it's not going to be anything beyond 2 or 3 wins, whatever they finish up with, and that their confidence vote in Davis Mills is going to stay low, and that they're already looking towards the draft. So, hopefully that excitement that was here back in March, April, May will come back around next March, April, May, and it'll carry forward a little bit better than it did this season, because this has been a rough one. But like you said, there's a lot of excitement. You got to realize this team has a ton of draft capital, not just next year, but the year after that as well. and they can, like you mentioned, they can turn some of that capital that's coming up in 2023 into more capital, not only next year, but the following year, and just have it continually rotating forward. It's kind of what Howie Roseman does in Philadelphia.
Man,
Yeah, he's able to get that extra pick from the Saints on that on the
Olave.
on the Olave trade, and they made that trade the draft before with Miami, and they just seem to find a way to continually reload and have the
You
draft
just give up a
equity.
pick for AJ Brown. It's like, damn. Oh, well, we also happen
We
to
still
have the number 4 pick in the upcoming draft.
Yeah, we still are able to draft and trade up and get Jordan Davis, things like that. So, it's God, man, you can just dive so much into this and talk forever on it, and it's going to be a fun ride. I mean, you try to find some positivity this year, and it's going to be a fun ride for the next probably 2 years, just from a roster building aspect,
No
and
question.
and from the draft, and so it's exciting to see all that. I don't really have much else to cover tonight. I had one other question for you, Landry. So,
Okay.
which players are on the roster right now have the most pressure on them for the rest of the season?
Davis Mills, obviously, because, quarterback.
Yeah.
Does anyone else really have much pressure? Like,
I mean, I know
there's
Titus Howard has got full guaranteed salary next year, but I think that's one player
Titus.
that's got a little
Okay.
pressure on him. And
It's really just Davis.
yeah. I mean, everybody else is 1-year deals, and there's no real player, no names that are just like, oh, we've got to re-sign him and get him back for next season. There's really barely anybody on the roster outside of Tunsil or Howard that you're just clamoring to get under contract and get signed for the future. I mean, everybody else is just kind of replacement level. So
That's it.
I just want to make sure I wouldn't miss any names. I pretty much didn't have any other names that
John
excited
Weeks.
me. John Weeks. When's he getting his 200? I need to go back and look and
Soon.
see.
He's coming on with us tomorrow. We're gonna mess with him.
On tomorrow. All right.
Yep.
Let's see where he's at in his count. 199.
Yep.
So
This
next
week.
game against Tennessee is number 200 for him, which is what he
We're gonna
wanted.
talk to him about it.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I don't have a whole lot else tonight. Thanks to everybody tuning in. You were on our YouTube live. Glad to have everything function properly. Had all my cables plugged in appropriately this time.
Good job.
Yeah. Make sure you subscribe to the Cap and Trade YouTube channel. Got the ticker on the bottom there, the Cap and Trade newsletter on Substack if you prefer the written form. And as always, subscribe to Landry's channel, The Locker Room. He's pumping out content left and right multiple times per day. And it'll be a busy week starting Friday night for him. He'll be doing heavy in the Astros. Not sure if we'll have a show next week or not. Depends. The Astros are playing almost every night, and then the Texans
Astros playing baseball.
And then the Texans playing Thursday night next week. So we'll see if we can find a time slot in, or I may just go solo and make it work. But Landry, appreciate it, sir.
Have a good one, my friend.
And like I said, everybody else joining in, I appreciate you. And with that, we will shut it down, and everybody have a good night. Thank you.